Hey everybody, welcome to Obscurities in Miniature. It is time once more for that Friday dose of Obscurities in Literature. And today's book is a bit of an oldie but a goodie, and I mean by old, it's not really that old. Originally came out in 2017. But this is the... crap. Terada, Katsuya, and Jung Gi Irasto Shoot. So, Terada, Katsuya, Jung Gi, both very incredibly talented artists, were brought together for this book, and the two of them had a bit of a, strong bonding friendship based on art and other interests, and that's kind of what this book is. Originally, I thought it was a magazine. Maybe there was a magazine of similar sorts, but anyway, this is kind of a cool book because, number one, getting Jung Gi stuff in anywhere outside of Korea, it becomes quite pricey. But number two, I've always been a big fan of Terada's stuff. So, this book is really cool because it's one of those things that every time you open it up, there's just tons of stuff to browse through. And yes, it is in Japanese. And yes, there is copious amounts of nudity. So I have to be incredibly careful with that. I don't, but just for the sake of whoever is watching this, and so I don't get slapped with, being in trouble. And I do have students that sometimes stumble across these things. So just to be on my bestest behavior. It is pretty neat because what this book has is tons and tons of sketch work by both artists. And Terada's stuff, I've always been a big fan of. I've mentioned it before. I think he's even mentioned it before, how much of an influence Mobius and Jean Giraud and the whole heavy metal Metal Hurlant stuff was on his style. I'm pretty sure I've seen him in video talking about that. Jung Gi was just on a whole other level. The man's use of perspective and just the sheer amount of wacky, unique stuff coming out of his brain and being put to paper was never a dull moment. There's just so much going on with his illustrations, and I mean, if you're into that kind of stuff, there is an absolute ton to love. What's really neat about this book is you've got stuff that both of them got to work on doing as well. But again, I'm always one of those people that loves to just see maybe not the completely finished pieces, but kind of what's going on behind the scenes. Their bromance going on there. And anytime I see like these kind of off-color reversal things, negative lighting, this makes me think of like Kingdom Death. As I'm flipping through this, it's Gen Con weekend too, so you best believe I'm going to be getting distracted with stuff from there. Oh! Also of interest is we've got some very random comic sequences. I mean, they're very random. Not that they make much sense either. Which I guess fits into the whole, kind of heavy metal Metal Hurlant aesthetic. They don't go with a full Arzak homage, but that's okay. It's kind of interesting that the book is also interspersed with actual photographs and conversations between the two gentlemen. Terada's art was always just kind of out there. If you ever get a chance, if you're familiar with the old Legends of Zelda artwork from Nintendo Power, Terada actually did that, and if you ever take a look at it, it has got to be a major, major influence on Kingdom Death. Not to say that Terada's art itself isn't already an influence on a lot of the guys that are involved with that. See, I've always liked a lot of his stuff like this, where it's, I don't know, it's not simpler, but guess to a degree. When you compare it to something like this, which is obviously a lot more complex in its composition versus just, you know, a couple simple colors, not even a full body. But I think that's one of the other interesting things about Terada's art is he's always been able to just, you know, kind of operate in a whole lot of different styles. Which is probably why you've never seen him really do a whole lot in the realm of manga. He did do a Monkey King story years and years ago. I'm sure it's long out of print. Of course, it feels unfair that we're focusing entirely on Terada stuff. Because Kim Jung-gi's is just as distinctive, unique, and out there. Why are they wearing high-tech sci-fi armor and hanging out with samurai and hippos? Why not? The problem with Kim Jung-gi's art is you gotta have a lot of space and time to really focus on everything going on in it. Kaiju scenes of destruction. What's interesting about this book is that the two gentlemen are often commenting on each other's work. My son mentioned that before. Which is kind of interesting if you can read Japanese, obviously. I don't know if there's a edition of this in Korean, which might be easier for some of you to read out there. I work with a lot of Korean co-workers. But fortunately, with a book like this, they're not a whole lot of help. Of course, they're not a whole lot of help in helping me track down books in Korea either. They're often like, "Hi, Lord Tamerlane, how do you know about all these artists?" Too much time on my hands. If you guys ever have a chance to look, there's videos out there of Kim Jung-gi doing some of these like big mural pieces that he was well known for. Just wild the way he would come up with these gigantic compositions. And I could barely commit, like, you know, one character to a page. As far as I know, he only did one actual comic. You can see the two of them here going to town on the wall. And what's actually nice about this book is, besides the fact that we have the two of them from one of their exhibitions, I believe the two of them actually came out to LA for a giant robot exhibition. I know Terada was there multiple times, as well as Kim Jung-gi, now that I think about it. You get a quick breakdown of both of their published works. Unfortunately, Kim Jung-gi's sketchbooks are just pricey. One of these isn't going to get a hold of them. Spy Games, I believe, was originally released in France, wasn't it? I know I've seen editions in French, and maybe that's just what's out there. I'm sure there's some in Korean, but if you guys know any more about it, I'd love to hear it. Unfortunately, posting this stuff on a video with a very limited lens just doesn't lend it as much grandeur as it needs. Even the book itself, I feel, is kind of small. I mean, it's like a standard size art book, but some of their work is just so huge that it doesn't really do it justice. And I know there's some really, really large Terada books. I've had some, owned some, had some autographed, in fact, because I helped fund this channel with them. But that's a whole different story for a whole nother time. But as a cool little overview of both of the authors' works, this is a fun book to have. And, you know, sadly, we're not going to get much more from Kim Jung-gi, so it's kind of nice to have something to remember fondly on my shelf, what he was capable of and what he was producing, because the man absolutely was an incredible talent, not to diminish anything that Terada does as well, but both guys, really great artists, and a book like this, nice to have if you want to appreciate that stuff. So, with that said then, this has been High Lord Tamerlane with Obscurities in Miniature, saying thanks for watching, and we'll see you back here soon. Bye-bye.